Hello, ID.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We'll just wait for a few minutes. Let's just get everyone on board so we can just start a session. Okay. Just let's
No
wait for a
problem.
few minutes. Okay. So today's session, even it's a very interesting topic, and we are just eagerly waiting to know more from you. And we've just heard about self-compassion. I've just heard the word compassion. So, what do we just lack that information about what priority we should give to ourselves, right? So, it would be great if you can just give us a little information about what self-compassion is, what are the benefits of self-compassion, and then bust some myths about self-compassion, right?
Sounds
So.
good.
Yes, okay. So we'll just introduce Heidi now. So Heidi is our expert. So Heidi is a health and lifestyle coach, a podcaster, ultra marathon runner, and a beautiful mother. Heidi Jones helps professionals achieve goals and take action to balance their career and health. He's a professional health and lifestyle coach in Dubai, working for over 6 years with great emphasis on individuals' well-being. And we're really honored to have you on board today to talk about self-compassion for women. So it's
Thank
all
you
with you.
so much.
So if you can just give us a little information about self-compassion, and then we can start with busting some myths.
Absolutely. I think self compassion is something that we just don't talk about enough, especially in the well-being space. And so, for me to be able to share this, I feel really privileged. So, thank you for that. Because personally, for me, learning the practice of self compassion has been life changing. And when I see my clients start to integrate it into their healthy routines, they have transformation. So it can really help shift your life in a positive way moving forward. And that is around mindset, but it's so that's linking it with your mental health, but it's also emotional and physical health as well that will benefit from learning the practice of self-compassion. So what is self-compassion, people might be thinking, because it's not a term that we use a lot. And think about it from a real simple point of view. Self-compassion is when you are being kind to yourself. You are treating yourself like you would treat your best friend. We actually don't do this enough, especially as women. And obviously we're here because we're also celebrating International Women's Day. So I feel this is something that particularly women can really sort of take on board to help them feel more empowered in their life. And so self-compassion is that opportunity to learn how to be kind to yourself, but it's broken down into different things, and we're going to delve into that with the myth busting. But there are three things that you can sort of help understand it in a bit more detail. Number one, it would be self-kindness rather than self-judgment or being really critical towards yourself. So we're looking at being kinder, using much kinder language and words to ourselves, thinking and seeing ourselves in a kinder perspective. Another piece is being able to manage when we get overwhelmed with emotion. And it feels like life is really hard, or we are experiencing really hard things, that we can stop and get perspective and remember that we're not perfect, and that's okay, because we can get caught up in this everything has to be perfect, and if it's not, there's something wrong with me. And we want to break that myth, okay, that you're going to reach perfection. That's not true. And the third piece is around mindfulness. So you have to develop self-awareness. You have to know what you're kind of doing to yourself when you talk to yourself, or how you think or feel. And so becoming more mindful helps you then put the right tools in place to help you move forward with a more compassionate practice. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay. So that's like, a lot of information, and it's a lot insightful as well. And we just want to know more about these things. So let's just bust some of the few common myths we have today. So the first myth is women have to hide their emotions if they want to be taken seriously. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, so this one is definitely a myth we have to bust, because it is it's not true. And my perspective on it is, we do have to make sure that we are really keeping focused on our perspective rather than the situation we're in. So obviously, I'm aware that in certain situations, we don't want to be an emotional kind of, you don't want our emotions take over and us to react in ways that are not useful or helpful. Okay, we've all been there and we've all done it. Yeah, whether that's bursting out crying when you wanted to keep it together, or maybe screaming and shouting at someone rather than just calmly being able to react. So we've got to look at the type of emotions that we're thinking about here. But when it comes to self-compassion, what's really interesting is the research shows that if you hide your emotions away, okay, you are actually going to have this negative effect on your mental health, because what it does is, by suppressing our emotions, okay, kind of like holding them back, hiding our emotions, it can almost become a bit of a habit, where if we start doing it in one part of our life, we can then really do it in all parts of our life. Once we learn how to hide those emotions, ignore them, pretend they're not there, then we'll end up doing it in all different areas. And what that does is, it actually creates more of a negative spiral. When we feel like we're going down a rabbit hole of negative thoughts, and we feel rubbish, and we just kind of keep going down and down and down, like, why me, or poor me, or whatever. You've got to be able to accept your emotions for what they are. We've got to be able to recognize them. We don't want to hide them. We want to be able to feel them. And the piece of self-compassion is, you feel them, but you don't need to react. So you're accepting them, feel them, and you want to be able to use them to help you move forward. So say, for example, you're in a meeting, feeling highly emotional because something is just not going right, you're not being heard. That's very common. You feel like you can't speak up, and so you feel really frustrated, and you could cry. I'm sure lots of women here who are like in the corporate world have felt this before. And obviously in that moment, it's not useful to cry, is it? And so we're going to have to almost like hold ourselves back a little bit. That's okay. But what you want to do is to be able to take that emotion and to see it for what it is: frustration, anger, feel what it is, and then think, right, with that emotion, what do I need right now? I feel really frustrated and angry. What do I need? I need to go out for a run and just let out this like tension. And it would be a piece of self-compassion, being able to accept the emotion and then you take control of it. Now, one thing from my group coaching, the thing that all of the women have said to me, since I've done this group coaching program since 2017, and every single time it finishes, I ask them, what's your kind of like biggest takeaway? And the piece is that they all recognize that everyone is going through the same things as them, because that space they can share their emotions, they're not hiding away anything. And that in itself is really empowering, knowing that you are part of a bigger sort of picture, that you are just a human being and you're just like everybody else, really helps. Whereas if you hide your emotions, you forget that it's normal to have those emotions, and you should be having those emotions because you're a human being. Yeah, so
Correct.
listen to empower yourself using self-compassion.
Right. I've even read, research papers which says that, people who are self-compassionate are very less likely to be anxious or depressed. So this is,
Yes.
you explained that very beautifully, and that explains why you should be self-compassionate. That's a very nice explanation from your end. And
Oh, the health benefits are huge. Yes.
yes, yes. So the next myth over here is women can either have a successful career or a family.
So we need to bust that one. Absolutely. Now,
Absolutely.
the phrase "we can have it all" is very controversial because it's
Right.
so subjective. Everybody has a unique version of what their version of success is in life. If someone's
Correct,
version
correct.
of success is a career, high career, and having a family, they will make sure that it happens. To them, their priorities will be aligned, or their actions will also be aligned with going forward with making that their reality, their truth. Some people don't see that as a success. Some people think they maybe have to go and do it all. If they don't really believe it or see the value in it, or they would rather be at home than be at work, then they're never really going to be able to have both, because they're not fully, they're not fully committed to achieving both. And I think it's being able to take a step back and to not compare yourself with anybody else, because you might see people on Instagram that look like they have it all, but actually their all is probably completely different to how your all looks. And so I think when we have this phrase where we say we can only have a successful career or a family, it's really putting these like barriers up that women, if they choose both, then there's something wrong, or they're not going to be a good mum, or they're not going to be great at their job. And this is a real big topic that needs a lot of time and attention. And I think the first step for us as women is to kind of take that step back and to process that question, and to actually ask yourself what having it all looks like, or what a successful career and a family would look like to you. For me, I know for a fact that I can't work in an office and have a big corporate job, because part of my version of success is being able to take my daughter to school and pick her up. That's just my thing. Someone else would be like, why do you even bother with that? I'd rather be in the office. And that's okay. So we've got to really look at this situation from the perspective of what I value as success, and just sort of break that stigma that you can't have it all. I think when you focus inward on what matters to you, you can have everything you want.
Right. So all the ladies out there, please question yourselves first about, what you want, right? So what you can do and what you want. So that's a really good point. And coming to the third myth, self-compassion makes us lazy. Very interesting, right?
Yeah, self-compassion makes you lazy.
Yes.
Now this one is
What do you think?
a really interesting one, because what it means is we can be complacent when we become too nice to ourselves, because a lot of people build the habit of kind of beating themselves up to get stuff done, or to, I've got to be able to do this before I'm allowed to do that. Yeah, I can't have a treat unless I've spent an hour in the gym. Okay, but when you use self-compassion, you don't have that approach to life. Okay, but what is amazing about self-compassion, and this is within research as well, and having spent 10 years in the education system myself, if you think about how you motivate a child, okay, or a young adult, so I used to work with teenagers, if I went to them and was like, you know what, if they got maybe a low score in one of their tests, for example, and they were really disappointed, and they came to me and they said, I'm really disappointed with this, I'd be like, well, so you should be. That's shameful. That's not good enough. You're never going to amount to anything. What would that child do? They'd feel really demotivated. They would not feel like good enough to go out and learn and to do it again. So as a teacher, what you do is you say, okay, I know you're disappointed. Okay, that's fine. But what we're going to do is look at ways we can make it better. How are we going to make sure that you learn from the mistakes, and when you do the test again, you get good marks? And so what the research here is, it shows that motivation comes from positivity, positive praise. And so actually, when you're kinder to yourself, you do more. You're not lazy. You actually achieve more because you are self-motivated to go out and do more. So that's my kind of takeaway there from that one.
Right. That actually answers. That's very motivational as well. And self-compassion is selfish. So do you think that being kind to yourself is selfish? I don't think so. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so again, I'm sure you've heard this as well, that people, when they think of self-care, anything to do with selfish, because you have to put yourself before others, or you're making time for yourself before others. Now, this one is obviously a massive myth, because what is shown is when you actually are looking after your own well-being, and when your well-being is at high, you are much more able to give to others. Yeah, so it's a really easy example. If you're completely you're having a completely busy day, and you've made a massive mistake at work, you're beating yourself up, you go home, how do you react? You're not in maybe the best mindset. You might snap at your children, you might want to eat rubbish food, you might want to sit in front of Netflix, because all that emotions kind of overcome you, and you just don't feel maybe good enough to treat yourself well. Yeah, your habits are serving you, those bad habits are not serving you. But when you are compassionate to yourself on a consistent basis, you learn the practice of self-compassion, you're able to get over things a lot quicker. Maybe you did make a mistake at work, but you're able to go, you know what? Yeah, that was my mistake, my bad. I feel really embarrassed, but you know what? When I go home, I'm just going to make sure that I rest. I'm obviously tired, my brain wasn't thinking right. I'm going to have a rest, or I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to give my kids a massive cuddle to make me feel better, because that's what I need, and you just behave differently. So if you think about that element of selfish, it's really, the selfish piece can be almost reframed, that the selfish is a positive. When we do take time for ourselves and we are selfish, we can actually give much more to others.
Right. That actually makes sense. Being selfish is like, it's in a good way, right? It's like people do take selfish in a wrong and a negative way as well. But if we take it in a positive way, then it's really good, right? Yes. And the last myth is self-compassion is a form of self-pity. What do you think about that?
Yes. So sorry, let me just hear that one again. I just couldn't quite hear you.
Yeah. Self-compassion is a form of self-pity.
Self-pity, yes, this one. Okay. So again, if we think about self-compassion, what a lot of people tend to think is we are almost like letting ourselves off the hook, or we're allowing ourselves to maybe make excuses for ourselves, And when we think about self-pity, it's very poor me, why me, it's very egocentric, okay? And it's the complete opposite. So self-pity is actually the complete opposite to self-compassion, because what self-compassion does, it helps you see that what you're going through, no matter how hard it is, it's a human experience, and that thousands of other people have probably gone through it as well. And so you can't really have that self-pity, because you're like, well, loads of people have gone through this, I just need to move on, and and changes, or I need to be able to help myself through this process with some kindness, rather than kind of this judgment and criticism. And so it's actually the complete opposite to self-pity.
Right. We do get that now. So I think that's about all the myths over here. And if anybody has any questions, I think Heidi is ready to take that. So please drop in your doubts or questions in the section so that we can just read it out. Do we have any questions? All right, so I just have a question for you, like before anybody types out anything. So, do you think just being too harsh on yourself, just like you said, I just didn't do good well in my exams. So, can I just criticize myself and just motivate that in a form? Can that also be a part of self-compassion?
Oh, I'm really sorry, it's really crackly. I can't quite hear that last sentence.
Okay. So, just self-criticism, okay? Self-criticizing yourself.
Yes.
Can that also be a part of self-compassion? Because, sometimes you also tend to say that, you need to do something, right? You
Yeah.
more,
No, so
right.
yeah, so self-criticism, what you want to do is you want to swap self-criticism for self-reflection. Okay? because it's easy for our inner critic to tell us everything that we've done wrong, or to tell us that we're not good enough. But actually, we still need to use part of this information to learn and grow. Yeah, we don't want to ignore the things that we're not good at, or that we've experienced that don't make us feel good. We want to experience all of that and take it on board as information. But self-compassion helps it become more helpful and useful. So actually using reflection. So you'd say, okay, well, what went well? What didn't go so well? Where can I make some changes? Or what can I do next? A real great thing to do, especially when you are going through like a self-compassion practice, is to just ask yourself, what do I need right now? What do I need? That might be something physical, it might be something emotional. And then to say to yourself, what's one small step I can take to fulfill that? What's one thing that I can do to change the situation? And then that over time creates lots and lots of actions of you taking care of yourself and, you know, moving forward with your life in ways that make you feel good.
Okay, I think we have another question. What's your take on the fine line between self-care or irresponsibility? Is self-compassion an excuse for failure?
Would you be able to say that again, please?
Yeah, sure. What's your take on the fine line between self-care or irresponsibility? Is self-compassion an excuse for failure?
Okay, so what I'm taking away from that is about self-care and responsibility.
Irresponsibility.
Oh, irresponsibility.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you need, okay, so I want to look at, I think for me, as a coach, what I do when I talk about all of this, the underlying core, okay, is accessing personal responsibility. Okay. Accessing personal responsibility is about you having full ownership of your life and your choices. And so I can never tell someone what self-care they need or do or they should do, because it's very different for each person. And what it does is accessing self-responsibility is really about helping you see what's within your control, and then being able to accept what isn't in your control and being okay with that and letting it go and moving on. You know, we can again got caught up in these sort of traps of, oh, be doing that, or if I could only do this, but it's not an option for me, and you know, and you battle against yourself. When actually, when you access personal responsibility, you are owning every single thing that's going on in your life, no matter how nice, ugly, hard it is. But with that comes real sense of empowerment to move forward. I hope I answered that question.
Okay. I think you answered that. And the other part of the question was, is self-compassion an excuse for failure?
Is self-compassion a
excuse for failure?
Excuse for failure?
Yeah.
I love that question. So this is how you perceive failure. And everyone needs to fail. Like, failure is being a human being. Like I mentioned earlier on imperfection. We're not born, okay, with this right that from the day we're born, everything's right and we're never going to fail. One, that would be very boring. And we all have this same path. So accepting failure as failure, I love that. Failure to me is learning. Failure is growth. Failure to me is like evolving as a human being, because you need to fail to keep learning. Otherwise you get very complacent. So self-compassion helps you see failure for what it is, rather than the other way around, which lots of people do, and they're afraid of failing because of that inner critic that comes up afterwards. You know, this, you know, that can be very mean and kind of sway you off track and not make you feel great. So I don't think it's an excuse. I think it's part of failing in a healthy way.
That was powerful, actually. So, all your answers about self-compassion was very warm, care, very with a lot of care and the desire to understand yourself. So, I think
Mm.
we've learned a lot from this session right now, and I would like to thank you for being here and just giving us a lot of information about self-compassion today. And we are ready to take any more questions. If you have any more questions, I think we can just take that on. Um, all right, I think that is it. So before closing the session, I would like to share news to all the beautiful ladies out there, including you, Heidi. See, on the occasion of International Women's Day, Enhapp is planning to give 50% discount on their Weight Busters package for the first 100 women who want to sign up. Okay, so ladies, all of you out there, please grab this opportunity to be more active, and you would like to be back in shape, right? So this is a wonderful opportunity for all of you all to take this. And we have a discount code which is Women Power, obviously, right? So we all have that power. So please do. And there are three separate packages. I would like to discuss that with three different durations. Our hope package is for 1 month, resilience package is for 3 months, and resolution is for 6 months. So these are the packages we have. And to know more about these programs, please reach out to us. There's the link which is there in the bio. And don't forget to sign up and get a free consultation, ladies. And those who are in UAE, please download the app and check out our store section as well. And wishing all the ladies out there a happy Women's Day in advance, and to you as well. Thank you so much for being with us, Heidi. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.